Welcome back to Ferocious Education. This is Zed. Today we're going to be talking about Corbus Pharmaceuticals, going with the ticker CRBP. Now, this one here, I'm going to go through technical analysis, due diligence, not in that order. First due diligence, then technical analysis. If you want to skip to technical analysis, you can go ahead. The link to that is in the description below and in the pinned comment. Make sure to drop a like to this video to help this channel grow, and please subscribe and leave notifications on. Let's jump right into this one. So, Corbus. This one here has a lot of attention today. It had an unusual volume, around 40.51 million volume, and we're here to take a quick look onto what's new. So in general, they have 2 lead compounds with 1 ongoing late-stage clinical studies with 700 compounds in library and more than 350,000 people affected by the target diseases. So first, what we're going to be doing is going through their presentation and then diving through statistics regarding their price over book, price over sales, and then the latest news, their books, their financials, and everything in between. So it was founded in 2014. Previously, this is a little bit outdated. The market cap is actually different than that here. And they did mention back in November that they have key catalysts expected over the next 6 months. So some of the start, actually, they have the dermatomyositis. That is in phase 3, so that's in a late stage. And this one here is top line results expected Q2 2021. This actually is already done, and we do have here, so the status, it says here, planning next clinical and regulatory steps. And then we do have genetics side. So the first one was autoimmune. Genetic side is actually in phase 2, almost going to phase 3. The phase 2B study completed over in October 2020, and they're planning the next clinical and regulatory steps. If there's any updates, we're going to go through them in the SEC filing, because I did pile in the last few months all the way from September on the SEC filings. Now, systematic lupus, that enrollment is expected in the first half of 2021, so as we speak. They have a preclinical library for evaluating and advances in 2021 to maximize near-term value, so you can expect new pipelines to show up soon. So, a little bit of an explanation onto what endocannabinoid actually is for systems, the ECS systems. I'm not going to dive through in details here because we aren't very much interested in the exact small details as investors, but rather than just statistics and how relevant they are. So, in North America, the patient population can go up to 280,000. Now, overall, 248,000 in Europe, Japan around 50,000, up to China 420,000. Now, up front, there's a 27 million payments and up to $173 million of potential milestone payments. That is with Japan's partnership exclude alone. So you can think about it here. Double-digit royalty payments is to be expected for sure. So the oral agonist of cannabinoid receptors type B2, a GPCR that regulates inflammation of fibrosis. Their IP there is until 2034, so they have an intellectual property for this one here. Now, in general, their R-square is around 0.8764, which is basically 87.64 off the data, can be explained by their statistical plot there, so that is actually pretty good. And you get to see the higher the dose, the higher the AUC levels. And in general, these data represent generally a good statistical point of view. Now, the P here is 0.008, which is in fact pretty good, and there's still less than 0.05, which is statistically still relevant. Now, they do show you a little bit of an improvement from week 0 all the way to week 12. In general, this here does for the few points here, the majority of adverse reactions observed in clinical studies conducted to date are mild to moderate. Most common adverse events thought to be related to linabism are dizziness, dry mouth, and fatigue, which are consistent with expected class effects. Minimal changes from baseline in vital signs in laboratory safety tests, and changes similar to those seen in placebos. So that is a little bit of an issue there, but safety data in blind clinical studies are consistent with observed and unblinded studies, which is good. So the next thing here, fibrosis that affects around 200,000 people with systematic sclerosis in the US, Europe, and Japan. And the next thing here is basically the question of how severe these cases are, and a little bit onto their phase 3 results in general. So phase 3 results in general, they do look like they have a bit of an improvement around, let's say, 64% have stability within 5%. That is for the 20 milligram. Now, you can get to see the results for at least for stability within 5% and improvement. Improvement is marginally acceptable or marginally better, but stability within 5%, that seems to be double what actually the placebo is, which looks to be pretty good. Now, the next one here is dermatomyositis. Sorry, my bad. I cannot pronounce some of these words. 30% mortality in 35 years. DM is a rare and life-threatening disease characterized by skin and muscle inflammations, and they're going on with a different product for them. And that is actually going on to phase 3 as well. So phase 2 is already, this is the results, ongoing phase 3 study, and the top line results are expected the next quarter. So that's another PR coming up down the line. So they're working with 176 subjects with a 28-week study. Now, phase 3 for baseline treatments in general, for any use, you get to see they have around 86% compared to others around 30%, which is still somewhat relevant. So the next is SLE, and that is enrollment is expected to complete in the first half of 2021. So that's another PR. There are around 100 subjects to be expected, and they are currently going on to phase 2. Now, the next one here, which is the cystic fibrosis. Vast majority of treatments occurs in one of 130 CF care centers, including 33 Corbus sites. And then there is also decline of patients experiencing PEX IV has been modest despite introduction of CFTR modulators. So on average, patients spend around 18 days hospitalized for PEX per year, and there's around 22,300 US or cases in the US for age 12 and above. So this is actually in phase 2B. In general, statistical data here are still all over around the place, and we're yet to expect some results on this one as well. Next is basically a little bit of an introduction on the team. So we kind of cover everything we need in this case. If you would like to get to a little bit more dive in deep depth about Resolve phase 3 study of lenabasum and systematic sclerosis, they also have a different presentation. There's around 34 pages just regarding that. So it just really dives even deeper with a bit more statistical data, although some of the slides here are very much similar to what we've seen previously. Next is some of the SEC filings. So we'll go from the furthest out to the recent. So this one here is the top line results for Resolve 1 phase 3 study of lenabasum for treatment of systematic sclerosis, which basically says this was all the way back in September. Top-line data shows no significant difference in primary and secondary endpoints when comparing to lenabasum to placebo, both added to background drug therapy. The next is unprecedented improvement was observed in subject on placebo added to background drug therapy, achieving median ACR CRIS score of 0.887. 84% of enrolled subjects were receiving background immunosuppressive drug reflecting recent trends in clinical practice. Lenabasum treatment was safe and well tolerated in the study with no new safety signal observed. Further analysis of data are underway and results will be presented in upcoming medical conference. And that is the second presentation. But basically, again, as we mentioned, top-line data showed no significant difference in primary and secondary endpoint. Next year, we already have this exact same PR, just mentioned differently. On September 11th, David Hockman submitted his resignation from the board of directors, and effective immediately, Mr. Hockman has replenished his position on the board of finance committee and nominating the corporate and corporate governance committee. Mr. Hockman's resignation was no result of any disagreement to the company. So, next, Corbus Pharmaceuticals announces corporate restructuring and pipeline portfolio updates. Company is restructuring with goal of extending cash runway till mid-2022. Workforce to be reduced by 54%. That was back in October. Company to focus on completing phase 3 dermatomyositis study and advancing preclinical pipeline into clinics. And that basically, they basically have enough cash until 2022 based on their PR. This one here was all the way back in October 8th. So almost the same exact time as this one here. And they're basically just saying that the company recent announcements of that the company's phase 2B studies of lenabasum in patients with cystic fibrosis failed to meet its primary endpoint. We already know that from way ago, from September. The company recent announcements that the top-line data for Resolve one phase 3 study of lenabosum in patients with diffuse, the blah blah blah, showed no significant difference in the primary and secondary endpoint. We already know that. And they're working on reprioritizing its research and developments in pipeline. So that was just basically an update. There's nothing more there to talk about. The next is they're announcing lenabasum abstract to be presented at ACR Convergence in 2020. And part of that was all the way back in conference in November 5th to 9. And preliminarily based subject demographics and disease characteristics in a phase 3 clinical trial of the safety and efficacy of lenabasum. We've already gone through that in the previous presentation because that was the presentation slides that are up to date. And then Corbus Pharmaceuticals announces presentation of data from its phase 2b study in cystic fibrosis at NACFC 2020. As previously reported, lenabasum did not meet its primary efficacy endpoint in the study. Lenabasum was well tolerated with no new safety findings. Exploratory post-hoc analysis revealed unexpectedly low PEX rates in subjects from 5 Eastern European countries, 21% of total, who received the placebo. PEX rates in these subjects were 85% lower than the subjects from other countries. Post-hoc analysis in subjects with similar FEV1 percent predicted at baseline similar treatment with CFTR modulators suggested evidence of clinical benefits of lenabasum. In general, it looks like there's a promise there. It looks like the results are promising, so bullish. In November, the top line data remains as previously reported. That was for Resolve 1, so we don't have any updates regarding that. So we're going to move forward. The next is their presentation in November 19th, and we did cover that, so that was the most up-to-date presentation. And their next presentation happening on the webinar in New York Academy of Sciences. The webinar is happening on January 27th, 2021. And it will talk about different things here, starting at 2:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The first talk is New Insight into Resolution of Acute Inflammation of Human Provided by Lenabasum, a synthetic analog of Delta-8, THC 11-oid acid. The next is Therapeutic Potential of Targeting Cannabinoid Type 1 and Type 2 Receptors. The third is Oral Abstract Presentation for CRB317, a selective cannabinoid receptors Type 2, CB2 agonists, inhibits NLRP3, inflammasome activation, cytokine production, and has activity in a model of gouty arthritis. So that is a little bit of related news. Now we go on towards insider buyers and institutional transactions. Institutional transactions, we have around 1.59% acquisition from State Street Corp, and then another 10.63% from ETF Managers Group LLC. That is in the last 3 weeks. Other institutional buyers, it looks like it's a little bit of a mess. This company here, Colors Group, they lowered their position but added a call in there and removed their put, which looks bullish. In general, institutional buyers seem to be more bullish about this one than bearish, which is a good thing. Insider buyers, we don't have anything in 2021, but there has been some purchases, sales, and exercising. Nothing really to worry about. So the next thing we want to cover here is their market cap. So the market cap is $198.32 million. Now going on towards their statistics here, you can get to see that, well, we don't have their price over book ratios, but we can pull that up from somewhere like Finviz, even though their accuracy is by best mediocre. But in general, we want to look first as well on financials. So while financials loads, it's the wrong ticker here. So CRBP, that itself, the price over book here is around 6.56, price over sales of 33.61. So because of, it's a pharma, so they're gonna burn around with a lot of cash. The price over sales is fine. Price over book usually is around 2 to 3 for these kind of companies itself, or generally in SP 200. What you have in general is 2 to 3 off the averages. So in general here, what we want to look at is their latest revenues. Latest revenues, you get to see there has been somewhat off a stable around 1.1 million generally. Now in terms of the total cash, that's more what I'm interested in, and their total assets. Their total assets has been decreasing expectedly because they are a pharma, but the big thing about this one here, if you look annually, is their total debt has been increasing. It's expected. Now, the big thing about this one is currently they have, as of date, $26 million in debt. Total assets is 95, which is good, but their total cash is around 81.8. So in all technicality, they have enough money and they can restructure to pay off that debt and not so much worried about their books that much because they're pharma. They are more in the clinical stage, critical stage regarding fixing their books and getting sure the pipelines are there. First, the pipelines, they need a product. Now, before moving on towards technical analysis, please make sure to actually subscribe and leave notifications on. It helps me a ton, and if you'd like to join the conversation here with stocks, you can do so on my Discord. We just chat all day. There's no pumping allowed in there, and it's just a small community. Make sure to please subscribe and leave notifications on, and let's jump right into the technical analysis. So on a 1 week perspective, things are looking a little bit better on momentum. It's actually starting to grab a little bit better momentum, which is amazing. The MACD here is actually gone towards the positive side. And moving averages wise, they're all bearish. But above the 290, that's the first bullish zone for the moving averages. You get to see the 10 SMAs climbing up while the 30 EMA is climbing down. And that's a good thing. Usually what you want is that green line, the 10 SMA, to be above the 30 EMA. And the 50 SMA and purple line to be above the 200 SMA. The big thing that broke everything was this massive drop we had September. This is what's really regarding, if you think about it, the massive failure about their phase 3 of their last product. And yeah, that really brought it down on September 8th. It really tanked it down from somewhere like $10 to $2. So in general, on a 1 day perspective, things look a little bit different. It looks like you're tracking back. ADX shows in a potential green trend. Momentum looks really bullish. MACD is starting to look bullish. Willing %R is starting to look good. And ADX is really falling up, going up nicely. Now, on the moving averages here, 10 SMA is above the 30 EMA. And it's above the 50 SMA. So that overall is still bullish. Now, on a 1 hour perspective, things are looking a little bit rougher. You're getting to see a retraction here on the MACD. Actually, let's go 2 hours. So we're a little bit more adjust to it. So on a 2 hour perspective, yeah, you get to see MACD is a little bit slowing down. That's a little bit of area of concern. Yet the 10 SMA is above the 30 EMA. 193 to 182, that is your positive reversals points. It's still bullish above 172. ADX shows in a potential of a new trend forming. Now, moving on towards the moving average band here, you expect this one to trade 166 on the top, 151 in the middle, and 136 at the bottom. Yet, we can get to see that it doesn't always trade within the moving average band in general. It has been trading a little, but you can take that as a support for the 166 as you get to see. That's how it acted in the last 6 or 7 days, business days. Stochastic fast and stochastic slow are both pinpointing upwards, showing there is another leg for this one. Now, whoops, I have no idea how this happened, but there we go. We can just easily remove all drawings and redraw the Fibonacci retracement. So I'll go from the top, 978, all the way to 910. And then from there, you get to see the first Fibonacci retracement resistance is at the $3. So what we can do is we can take the 161% level at the 978. And then from there, we can get to see the first Fibonacci retracement support is at 221. The next resistance, 301, 366, 431, 523, and 641. Now, quickly going on the charts here, what we can do quickly is start drawing with a price line action what the significant supports and resistances are from our charts. First, with significant supports. 223 seems to be a really good one. Below there, we're looking down to 185, and then 180, and then jumping down to 168 and 156, and then 147. Now, we need to go a little bit into a 6 months 1 day to find the next resistances. Actually, we need to go a little bit further. The first real resistance that we get to see is at the 347. Unless you want to go really back, then it's probably at the 274, followed by 326, followed by 387, followed by 421, followed by 447. So, Ed, what do you think about this one? I, myself, long terms, I don't like pharmas, but if they actually go ahead and they really go through with the promising data they have, there is potential for this one, at least in the short term. Stochastic fast, stochastic slow are both showing another leg up. There is a conference happening on January 27th, so I do expect there probably is another leg up for this one, and you can still trade it and make money from here until the January 27th. Beyond January 27th, things are looking murky. There's a lot of PRs coming up for this one. If you remember, throughout the video, we did have a bunch of things where it's second quarter 2021 or the first half of 2021. PRs are to be expected, and they do have a bunch of things in the pipeline that can really give this one a really nice push. Now, in general, you got to be careful with pharmas in general, but there is money to be made here. What do you think about this sticker? Make sure to mention down in the comments below. Share, subscribe, and like. You have a wonderful day.